Town of Monroe Planning Board meeting. Noreen, can we start with a roll call?
Bonnie Franson is out this evening. Jeff Manson
Here.
will be acting deputy chair this evening. Pat Shea.
Here.
Dylan Penn is out. Sarah.
Here.
Before we get started, just going to point out the fire exits directly behind you in the glass doors, out to the parking lot, out this front door and out to the right, or out the doors on this side and out to the left and onto the porch. If I can ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you. We're starting this evening with the continuation of the public hearing for Eagle View Estates.
David Nimatko, with architect working on the project.
Thank you. Before we get started with public comment, David, anything that you'd like to discuss with us since our last meeting in August?
Just reiterating what happened at the last meeting. We're on the verge of approval, as was acknowledged. So we're here just to wrap up whatever loose comments so we can move ahead. I mean, we're at that stage. We're at that time.
Sure. Ashley or Sean, anything at this stage?
Just to remind the board, main public comment from last time was potential additional screening along the western edge of the property. I have reached out to Karen Arendt to provide some input on how to address and how that should be screened. Unfortunately, I don't have anything this evening, but I think that's been into the resolution.
Thank you. Ashley?
Nothing further from me.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak here in regards to this application? Please come up. Thank you. Sorry, before you get started, there's a switch on
Alrighty.
top of the microphone.
Jeff,
If you
I
could
think
pull-
it's on. George said,
It is?
yeah.
Okay. Yes, if you could just introduce us and give us your address, please, for the record. Thank. It's not on?
I think it's on now. Cynthia Francis, 404 Lakes Road.
Please go ahead. What would you like to
Okay.
discuss this evening?
Last time that I was here, we talked about, which thank you for mentioning, the screening. There's also some other concerns. You talked about building 2 wells and 2 septics. Where are they going to be?
Please go through with all your comments, and then
Okay,
we'll answer
fine.
questions or make comments as appropriate.
Concerns about, again, the space. It's very, very close. I actually think sometimes it's best to have a visual of what we're talking about.
Thank you. Can you describe what I'm looking at?
Well, you're looking at how close the properties are. Last time I was here, we discussed how very close. The others on the board, all of you, agreed that there is a concern of how close this is. You can see they're working on the property, and it's right next to me. It's also the concern, again, grand idea, but minimal space. So I'd like to really know how this is going to look, because we're so close. It's just, you're practically in my yard. And I'm just wondering where all these ideas are going to unfold in this little project.
Other concerns?
Concerns are the wells. Will there be an impact to my property as well? I know there were others that, I don't know if they were able to make it here, work, but I'm here. So that is a concern. What's that going to look like for me and others around surrounding areas? And is that something that the architect has really looked into? Has there been a test? Are they going to be cutting down trees, things of that nature? And if they're going to be a lot of digging, how is that going to affect my trees, my property?
So, one of the nice things about this project is there's no tree clearing whatsoever on this project.
That's good to know.
Not a single tree has to be removed. It's worked into, most of the property, as you well know, since you live next to it, is clear, other than some of the brush down by the road. And I'm sorry, David, I don't remember, at the top, at the back of the hill, are there any trees along there? No, it's wide open to the houses behind and that sort of thing. So there's no necessity for that in this case. As far as the wells, those were tested quite some time ago, years ago. I forget exactly when the well tests were. I don't know if you remember, David.
I believe we have it documented. It was tested to its fullest extent. There was no impact on the site.
And as I remember, at the time, there was monitoring of nearby wells as part of that test.
Done by an independent contractor, independent professional.
That was also overseen by our planning board consultant on water, on hydrology.
Is that public information, and where is it?
So you can find all the information in relation to this project on the website, in the documents section. The planning board has a section in the documents section, and you can actually get pretty much everything we've received in relation to this application and any application that's before the board right there. Those documents are also available to view in your office, Noreen?
Good to know. Yeah. And
That's
how
something.
up to date are these well tests? Is it something that only takes one time, or, I mean, lots happened since, when was this done?
I believe it was 2019 that the tests were performed. However, the resolution does require additional testing be observed once the wells are installed on each lot prior and reviewed by the town's hydrogeologist prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for each home.
And they're sure there's no impact to the surrounding homes?
The hydrogeologist believes that there would be no impact to each home, and the additional testing completed prior to the certificate of occupancy will also be reviewed by the town's hydrogeologist. Should any issue arise from the testing, they'll have to mitigate it prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy for the dwelling.
That's certainly an issue that we studied fully. You asked in relation to where the septic locations, they're going to be in the front yards of the houses. We can see them here on the screen. Remind me, Cynthia, are you on, you're in that side, correct?
Yes.
So in the lot closest to you, that house is a little bit further up. The front yard, there's going to be a retaining wall along the front yard. Everything sort of forms a bit of a bowl there.
I'm sorry,
And
these are the these are older plans.
those are the older plans,
Yeah.
but
5:30.
I have 6/27/24. June 27th, 24.
While they're looking for that document, something to be aware of with this project is the septic systems are anticipated to only be for a somewhat limited time. Right now, there are no further connections into the sewer system until an expansion happens and access is granted. But this property, once if and when there is capacity, this property is required at that point to then hook into the sewer system. That's one of the things that we looked at as well.
But there's no date on that, is it? As of
No,
this-
that's something still being worked on at a high level. That's a county issue. That it is. I don't want to say it's simply being batted about. There are some preliminary plans for that, but there's no timeline for that at this point. Not only will they have to finalize plans, but funding will have to be approved for that.
Right, so it's not tomorrow.
It's not tomorrow.
Right.
Right.
So-
So what will allow this project to go forward is septics in the meantime, and that was provided for in the front yards, in front of the houses. Because I know you have a concern about where those are going to
I
be.
have a lot of concerns.
Yeah, one of the other issues in relating to designing where the septic went is the proximity of the lots to the lake. And so obviously it has to be far enough from the lake that it has to work environmentally and not discharge any pollution into the lakefront
And that's been approved.
by, you're right. It was verified by.
Correct.
It was verified.
It was verified by our engineer as well. If memory serves, actually, we couldn't really go much further from where we were. We kind of were really right at the point where we need to be.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a more up-to-date version of the plan. You'll see in the front yard of each of the plans, there is a retaining wall. You can see the cursor moving along the one closer to your home. So the driveways will kind of be set down between those walls. It's one split driveway entrance, so that instead of having two driveway entrances and having to clear more brush than necessary along because Lakes Road is a scenic road, there'll be as little disturbance as is absolutely possible, thanks to the single driveway entrance curb that then splits into the two driveways. Those will be set down between the retaining walls, and the garages for the houses will actually be below grade. So they'll come into like a underground basement. So the front yards will be a bit elevated. At the corner of the wall, can you show the corner closest to the driveway, Sean? Of the retaining wall, I'm sorry.
Oh, here.
Yeah. The wall there, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, is approximately 8 feet. There'll be landscaping added along the retaining walls.
8.5.
8.5, thank you. But where it comes closest to your property, the wall will actually be quite short because it's going to work its way into the land side and then be backfilled behind that to create a front yard for the property and to allow for the septic.
And that,
Correct. These are final.
This is a final plan.
That's true. There
Could
would
you
be.
just step back behind the podium so we can hear you on the...
It could be subject to change over time. I mean,
Any alterations?
any operation needs adjustments once you get started.
Any alterations would have to come back to this board for approval.
Right, so if ultimately once an approval is given on this application, once building or permits are issued, all the conditions are met, then if anything had to be executed, ultimately when they got on site and started doing the building, that had to change these plans, it cannot change without coming back before the town. It comes back before this board.
Just to clarify too, these plans, there will be additional landscaping required. The planning board's consultant had recommended landscaping by the retaining walls, and then also the draft resolution is asking the planning board consultant to also address landscaping along the western edge of the property.
Her
To
property.
screen your property, yes.
But we don't, we don't have any of that today. Nothing to,
Right, yeah, you brought that up at the meeting on the 20th, and at that
Yeah.
point, we brought
we
it to.
thought we were coming back today to
Yeah, we-
discuss it, but hasn't been addressed, so I stand on not in agreement. Yeah, I think just because of my interaction with this process, just, there's been intrusion and disregard for others around. It's clear they want to do what they're going to do, that's fine. But there still should be the mindset that we have neighbors here, and whoever buys these homes will have neighbors. So it's good to start off on a good footing, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm not impressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in attendance who would like to speak on this project this evening? Thank you. Board members, any comments that you had for Cynthia, or anything you wanted to address in relation to what we just heard?
I think we should address the issue of at least some kind of, right, trees being set there to make a division so that there's more privacy on the western side of the property.
Yeah, that is being worked on now. When Cynthia brought that concern up at the previous meeting, that was addressed to Karen Arendt, our landscape consultant, and she is working with the applicant on making some additional changes that we will take into consideration.
You know, I'd like the board to realize the realistic aspect of, I like the board to realize the true situation occurring on the west side. I submitted a snapshot to Noreen. I was hoping it was distributed. You could put it up on the screen, which would be great. The distance from the pool, which is what's in question, to the property line is approximately 40 feet, 41 feet. Also, there is a piece of property, a sliver of property from that point to the east that I'm not sure who owns, but not my client and not her. That's another 25 feet. So you have 65 feet from the edge of the pool to the property line. The width of this conference room is approximately 38 feet. So the pool is another 30 feet in that direction. That is far in excess of any separation between two residential homes in that neighborhood.
And remind me of the setback for this
I
project?
haven't even included that. When you add the setback on our property, you add another 15
15
feet
feet.
to the house, so equaling 75 to 80 feet away from the pool. And if the pool is 20 by 40, you're talking about another 40, 50 feet away from the home. So let's work in real terms here. That's what's happening. Not from our doing, I mean, that's from the GIS mapping. And it's interesting because it shows the pool on a separate lot, which is curious. So if we were to situate the house to the east, according to GIS,
I believe she owns that, doesn't she? The other property?
yeah. So we would be 40 at the minimal, plus 25, plus another 15. So we're at 85 feet away from the pool. And then add another 40 or 50 feet to the house.
Thank you. Pat?
I do recall bringing up something when when we had this last time, that I thought I saw a proposal from Karen or someone about how to mitigate this situation through trees and shrubs and stuff like that. Where did that come from, and has that been taken into consideration?
Well, yes, it's adopted. It'll be part of the resolution. So we have to comply with that memo. But those trees, which are approximately 10 trees, plus low-rising shrubbery, or
Right.
actually, I forgot what it was called, but along the front of them, that would be placed between the two, along the retaining walls and between the two homes.
So that would increase privacy for her?
It would increase privacy for the two homes.
Yes.
The
Okay.
two new homes.
And that's part of the resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Which we,
So, I don't know if you had heard him, but that was for increasing the privacy for the two proposed homes. So now, since then, the resolution, we've proposed a condition that requires screening to satisfy Karen along the western side of the property, which would address the visibility from this neighbor.
Thank you.
which we believe is not necessary. I mean, given the distance. I mean, that would be the side of the house, and the pool would be another 30 feet past that wall.
And I understand what you're saying. However, our speaker this evening did make a good point about there's something about doing something to establish yourself as a good neighbor, and I think that those screening trees between her property and these new homes does just that. So it seems appropriate to me. With that, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen? Aye.
Aye.
Pat Shea.
Aye.
Okay. Ashley, from there, what's our next step?
Is a draft resolution for review this evening, and Sean has it up there on the screen.
I'm going to just take a moment and bring that up in front of me. Walk through that.
Walk you through.
Thank you.
The project, your seeker, the various documents that have been submitted, and your findings. Your findings do include a finding regarding the shared entrance of the adjoining driveways, because this is a scenic road, and the planning board felt it was appropriate to minimize the number of curb cuts. Also have your recreation findings, that because they in the town and parkland area.
Ashley, sorry, pull your microphone closer, it's cutting in and out.
Because there is going to be an increase in the need for recreation areas, because 2 additional residences will be added, that the planning board would require a fee in lieu of recreation that's established by the town board. And as you noted, there's no tree removal proposed, so there's also a waiver of the tree plan requirement, since they're not taking down any trees. And then your specific conditions begin on page 6, I believe.
Like me to run through those, or are you going to run those as well?
I could run through them.
Thank you.
So the first, it requires final approval from your engineer and a sign-off on the plans that they're in accordance with his memo and with the resolution. The next condition lists various things that need to be accomplished before the plat can be signed. So updating the list of sheets to reflect the same names as the titles, deleting a reference to SBL 18461 on sheet C1 and in the zoning table, since originally that second SBL was included in the project, but it no longer is. Number 3 is to delete the second sentence in the tree preservation note to the extent there are trees with a diameter or breast height of 6 inches or greater on the property. And Dave, I don't know if you know the answer to that or not yet?
Or not.
Okay. The next is to revise Note 1 on C5 regarding the individual sewage disposal systems, that they'll no longer be constructed or used when public facilities are available, and require the owner to connect to the public system within 90 days. The next is to add a map note for the wastewater disposal system certification in accordance with the code certifying that the septic systems have been designed by an engineer and they will not impact public health or personal privacy, and there's adequate distance to protect private and public wells. The next is adding a map note that all future tree removal would have to comply with the DEC time of year tree restrictions for the northern long-eared bat. The next is to add required map notes and notations, such as the house relocation notes and erosion and sediment control notations. The next is to address all comments of the planning board's landscape consultant, Karen Arendt, landscape architect, noted in her memo of August 15th, 2024, to her satisfaction, and to add landscape screening on the west side of the property, satisfactory to Karen Arendt, landscape architect, to buffer the view of the new residences from adjacent properties. And then the next is to reflect that the retaining walls will be the Fortress square foot by Liberty Stone hardscaping systems, or an equivalent acceptable to the building inspector. So there were 2 colors in the specification sheet that the applicant had proposed. If the board picked one of them, or if either were acceptable, then I could just remove there were 4? Okay. So I don't know if the board has.
What we're demonstrating is it's not gray cement block. I mean, they're textured, they have colors to them, they're of the earth tones, so they would definitely be a match for the site. And, you know, in our opinion, any one of those colors would work. And we kind of like to have the flexibility depending on the color of the house too, so to kind of work everything together. But again, we're emphasizing that they're not just gray, plain-faced, straightforward
Cinder blocks.
Yeah.
Mafia
Yeah,
block.
they have a texture to them, they have a color.
I can delete that reference to color and just end it at hardscaping systems or an equivalent acceptable to the building inspector.
Board members, are we agreeable to that? Does that make sense? Pat?
I'm sorry.
Does that make sense that we'll give them some latitude in picking the final color?
Yes.
Any comment about it one way or the other?
Make it look nice.
That we can do. Okay.
I would tend to say skew darker rather than lighter, just because I think you'll get a more natural look that way. It's been a little bit since we looked at the sample, so
Sure.
I think with the rest of what you're planning, I just feel like that might fit in better. Just as a comment. Ashley?
Next requirement is to provide a engineer's certification about the wastewater disposal system in accordance with the code. Next is to provide the planning board office with proof of written approval of an Article 24 freshwater wetland permit from the DEC. That may have been accomplished already.
Yes, we received that.
The next is to execute a common driveway easement and maintenance agreement that includes the provision for maintenance of drainage facilities to my satisfaction. I know that you had presented a draft, so I will certainly review that and get you any comments. The next is to execute a restrictive covenant requiring compliance with the tree preservation law and setting forth the lot owner's obligations to preserve, maintain in good condition, and not alter the portion of the stone wall within the scenic buffer zone on their respective lot. Next is to execute a sanitary sewer easement across the adjacent property that's owned by the applicant and would give them access to that public sewer connection once it's available. Next is to deliver the fee in lieu of parkland. post a performance security and restoration security inspection fees and maintenance guarantees with the town clerk, and to include the cost of complying with the landscaping shown on the plat, and to obtain a general liability insurance policy and submit that to the town attorney for approval as to form. The third specific condition waives any mandatory public improvements to the extent they're not shown on the plat. Specific condition number 4 requires that the common driveway easement and maintenance agreement, restrictive covenant, and sanitary sewer easement be recorded in the county clerk's office simultaneously with the plat and prior to the transfer of any lot, and a copy of those recorded documents provided to the building department and referenced in the deeds for the subdivision lots. Number 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide the building department with proof of issuance of the necessary permit from the Orange County Department of Public Works for the work within the county right-of-way, the driveway connection to Lakes Road, County Route 5. Number 6, no building permit shall be issued unless and until the building department receives proof of filing of the easements, shared maintenance agreements, and deed restrictions required for a particular lot to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney. Number 7, all wells must comply with applicable New York State Department of Health regulations and be tested prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. All plans for future well testing shall be submitted to the town's hydrogeologist for review and approval. The town hydrogeologist may require neighboring wells to be monitored during all future water supply tests and require the applicant to prepare a mitigation plan to address any water quality impacts. Prior to the signing of the plat, the applicant shall deposit sufficient money in escrow to cover the cost of the town hydrogeologist review. Should that be shall require or may? Change that to the town hydrogeologist shall require neighboring wells to be.
And shouldn't that be prior to the C of O, rather than signing of the plat?
It is prior to the CO, it's just depositing the money in escrow to cover the cost of that review prior to the plat. So I think we'll change that to say, the town hydrogeologist shall require presenting monitored. Number 8, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the existing well on proposed Lot 1 shall be closed and abandoned in accordance with New York State Department of Conservation and American Water Works Association procedures and standards, and the applicant shall provide the town certification filing with the DEC. Number 9, this approval relies upon a drainage study or other evaluations by the planning board based upon the house structure sizes shown on the plat. No building permit for a house or structure larger than as shown on the plat will be issued unless a new drainage study satisfactory to the planning board engineer has been submitted and approved. Number 10, no tree removal is proposed or approved as part of the subdivision. Any future tree removal shall comply with the New York State DEC tree removal restriction, limiting all tree removal to between November 1 and March 31st. To avoid impacts to the northern long-eared bat and its habitats. Number 11, the future lot owners shall connect to the municipal sewer system once sewer capacity is available. And number 12, the individual sewage disposal systems shall no longer be constructed or used when public facilities become available. The lot owners shall connect to the public sewer system within 90 days of adequate sewer capacity becoming available. And then you have your standard conditions as well.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to make a motion that the board take a vote on this resolution to see if we're going to accept it. May I have a second?
It would be a motion to adopt the resolution as modified.
Sorry, a motion to adopt the resolution as modified.
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Noreen?
Aye.
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 Very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Continue this if,
I
Suffered enough.
Other than this project, I would laugh at that, but we thank you for being at the end of this. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Next application is 81 Raywood Drive. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shlomi Gel from Hartman Design. On behalf of the owner for 81 Raywood. Just a brief overview on the project. This is was subdivided a few years ago for a three-lot subdivision, and now we're applying for lot number 1 to use the two-family overlay to propose a two-family house. By the last meeting, we have a couple of comments from the village, from the town engineer and the lawyer. We have addressed all. And we hope we can schedule tonight a public hearing for the next month.
Thank you. John, if we could start with your comments, please.
Okay, so as you all recall, this is one of the lots from the three-lot subdivision that was approved. They're just looking to make one of the lots from a single-family to two-family. The existing sewer lateral, the existing water lateral are all going to remain the same. Really, the only improvements are slight grading modifications and expansion of the parking area to accommodate the new cars. So with that, I did look at the previously approved grading plan as part of the three-lot as compared to the new grading plan. There's only slight modification to grading on the middle lot, which would be the one that was tucked up closest, which I understand is under the control of the applicant, and therefore I don't think a grading easement is necessary. Did receive correspondence from DPW, Orange County DPW, with regards to the existing sewer lateral. There was a 6-inch lateral that was previously proposed and approved. No changes to that are being considered, and therefore DPW has said there's no need for a new approval from their office. With regards to the village supplying the water, there was a filed agreement between the village and the applicant for the original subdivision. I just asked that Ashley look at that to make sure that that's adequate, or to determine whether or not it needs to be amended and refiled. Number 6, we had discussed that there was a SWIP previously for this project. The applicant has added additional stormwater mitigation for the project. However, a new SWIP should be submitted addressing the additional impervious and mitigation efforts. Number 7 was with regards to a specific tree that's adjacent to the proposed parking area. I question its viability after construction and grading, so just looking at that and how that would affect the tree plan. Number 8, the applicant will have to file an amended stormwater maintenance agreement for the additional improvements. Number 9, note regarding the architectural plans, and it says that it's for planning board only and not for construction use. I asked that note be removed. And then number 10, I had specific questions on making sure that we had all of the finishes on the architectural plans called out with their color. And that was basically it.
Thank you. Have a question before we?
Yes, first regarding number 9, this note is basically what we usually putting on the architecture architecture plans when we don't have the structural and full set of construction documents, because it's not legal to sign if you don't have all the ducts for the foundation and framing. And at this stage, we're not doing this because for approval, this is the normal, if you have any other language, because we have to be protected that it's not for actual construction.
Understood. So perhaps the resolution could be written in such a way that the building inspector shall confirm that the architectural colors match.
Yeah, that makes sense, yes. That
The-
the full set, what we're submitting for a building permit.
Construction
should
building
match
permit.
with this, yes.
Perhaps that can be a note added to your architectural set as well as incorporated in the resolution.
Okay. And regarding the comments on the colors, it's some materials of the building, which is siding, shingles, that we can know now. Some features, like a type of a door, like a trim, it's sometimes while the construction, the builders, it depends on the price range. So it's a little bit hard to make now a decision of the actual model of the door.
So I'm not asking about the model. I'm wondering, is the door fiberglass? Is it wood? Is it metal?
Okay. And the same thing with the trim.
Correct.
Just
Is it
what
metal?
type of it? What type
Is
and
it
what
wood?
color?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not holding you to the make and model of the
Just
trim.
everything should have a type and
Correct.
color. Okay. And regarding the SWIP, I didn't review the full from the engineer has submitted letter with all the comments regarding the site plan, and as I know, he told me that no changes to the previous.
I disagree with that. His letter stated that he basically did some basic calculations for the stormwater in his response memo. However, I believe the SWIP needs to be amended in order to incorporate the additional impervious area and calculations for water quality volume, runoff reduction volume, and potentially for the quantity control.
Okay, so I'm gonna have him to review. Maybe can call you and
Sure.
understand what. Okay, to straighten this out.
Ashley?
So, I think we talked last time, there was some stairways in the side yard setbacks. Just wanted to confirm that those are allowed, that they don't, I believe Sean was going to ask the building inspector that those are allowed under section 5741C, which gives an exemption for those types of things that don't intrude more than 4 feet. I do have to look at the water agreement with the village of Kiristol to see if that's sufficient or if it needs to be modified. So there was previously a tree plan when the original subdivision was approved, so I just want to confirm that there's no additional trees being removed beyond what was previously proposed. If you know offhand, or if that's something you need to,
Maybe this one tree more that one of the comments today that.
so that one might be.
Okay. We can check about that and we'll get back to you about that.
And if you're not going to be replacing, if you're going to be removing an extra one and not replacing it, there's a fee in lieu. So if there's another spot on the property you want to place that tree at, you could do so. You'll need to add some standard tree plan map notes, which I could provide you to, and if technically that'll be the tree plan, once you have that change submitted, then that has to be referred to the MCC, and they have 30 days to comment.
Regarding the steps and the setbacks, as it's only 4 feet, if I just add to the site plan a dimension, is this enough, or we need from the building inspector?
Yeah, so I had reached out to the building inspector. I just looked, I didn't see a response from that. Whether or not the stairwells need to be counted towards the side yard or need to be within the side yard setback, or whether or not a variance is required. I think there is specific language in the zoning that exempts it, but I just want to have that building inspector confirm that that's the case.
Okay.
Application does require a public hearing, so I know there's a few things that are going to be submitted, but if you think that you're going to be submitting those for the next meeting, if the board wanted to consider scheduling a public hearing.
I feel comfortable that this modification will be submitted enough time.
I mean, I think the biggest concern in that is with Sean, that there's not necessarily much to do with that, and that's achievable within our timelines, then I think we could consider that. But I know that there's going to be a dry well that's added because of the additional impervious surface from the additional parking. So
Essentially, the applicant's engineer has done the work. It just needs to be incorporated into the SWIP. So from my perspective, I feel comfortable that it's, that they can achieve that, so.
okay. Pat, any questions, comments for our applicant?
No.
Lou?
No comment.
Okay, I don't have anything else either at this time. Would somebody like to make a motion that we schedule a public hearing for the 81 Raywood Drive site plan and special use permit for our next meeting on October 15th
At 6:30 PM,
at 6:30 PM?
or as soon thereafter as it may be heard.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Pat Shea,
Aye.
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 Thank you so much.
Any other questions for us before you go this evening, or you know what,
No, I think
what's
we
left
know
to
what
do?
we have to do. It's very clear, and we can coordinate.
One thing, I'm sorry, I don't know if, it might have been on Sean's comments, but for the lighting that's going to be, any light fixtures, submit the details and the specification sheets for those
Okay,
as part of the architectural.
okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next project will be 127 Seven Springs Road. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. John Queenan with Lankin Tully Engineering for the applicant. Back before you with a familiar project, which I think we're coming down to the end here, 127 Seven Springs Road. We addressed all of Sean and Ashley's comments from the prior meeting we were here. And we did receive comments from the Conservation Commission. They did a site walk end of August. We got those comments about a week after Labor Day. Happy to report I did take a look at them, and we're able to address the comments that are within their report. It actually makes for a little bit better project. I don't know if you've seen the comments, but I'm able to shift the driveway as Dennis had sketched up there, so that'll save that cluster of trees. That worked out. I verified that. And we also amended the grading along Seven Springs Road a little bit to save the additional tree that he was recognizing as well. So it actually worked out quite well.
How many trees in total that saved? Curiosity?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an additional 6 trees. And then we've been working with the board's landscape architect. So we've been going back and forth with comments. We're just about done with that review of that plan. And we were able to add an additional 26 trees to the landscaping plan that you currently have in front of you. So we're going to be replacing a total of 68 trees. And essentially, we're out of space to put more trees in. So we're, I think, at the end of the road there.
And how many total will be removed?
So total removed trees would be 274, and we'd be putting back 68.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other changes to the plan since we last
No, just addressing Sean and Ashley's comments, and I believe the updated architecturals were also submitted as well with the three color scheme options.
Sean?
Sure, only a few minor items. On the subdivision plat, I just asked that the stormwater maintenance requirements note be added to that plat. And additionally, the stormwater maintenance agreement will have to be prepared and accepted by the town board and the applicant prior to site plan and subdivision approval. There are some easements proposed on the plans. Those easement agreements should be submitted to Ashley and accepted prior to final approval. And then a question, because I don't think I got a chance to review the MCC report. Did they identify any landmark or specimen or protected trees?
I believe the report identified protected. Let me bring it up real quick. Oh. If you don't mind. Yeah, I have an email. I'll take that.
Good evening, Dennis.
Is this on?
It
Yes.
is.
Hi, good evening, Dennis Fordham, Conservation Commission. First of all, I'm very happy that my comments with regard to realigning the road to save only 5 trees, but they're nice trees, will be an improvement. It's also, I think, an improvement in the overall aesthetics of approaching the house further up. Our only other meaningful comment was try to plant more trees, which they've done, but there's still something in excess of 200 trees that will be removed and not replaced. So, as I'm sure Ashley will point out, they're going to be subject to the in lieu costs, or can they try? Is there another site that they can add trees to?
Those are always options that are open to us, and that we can examine,
Yeah.
you know, as part of moving
yeah.
this project along.
They said they were seeking the fee in lieu rather than replacing on any other property.
As of right now, yes, currently, yes.
I'm sorry, what was the statement?
They were seeking to pay the fee in lieu for the trees that weren't being replaced
Okay.
rather than to plant them elsewhere.
Yeah, okay, I understood. Now, just another sort of an aside question. Will the existing tree law apply in this particular case? As you're well aware, there's the new tree law which is currently being considered and probably will be approved within the next month or two.
It depends on the timeline of that.
Yeah.
It depends when that new tree law is adopted, when it's effective, and then when this application receives a decision. So
Yeah,
we'll just have to see how far along that is when this comes for approval.
okay, good. Excellent, and thank you again.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So then, next one was just asking that the site plan and subdivision be stamped and sealed by an engineer and a surveyor prior to final approval. And then lastly, it looked like there was just a inconsistency between the architectural plans and the site plan for these areas of the buildings. So just making sure that they are matching. And that was it.
Ashley?
Just a couple. It could include the architecturals, they show lighting, but they don't have the details for the light fixtures and the specification sheets, so if you could provide those. And then I think we had discussed last time, there's the 3 different color options. It's my understanding that those 3 different will be used, you know, there's one option for each. It's not that they're all going to be the same.
Well, no, the 3 options could be, each lot has the same 3 options. I mean, they could all be the same color. It depends on who purchases the house and what color they pick.
I guess the question would be, can all 3 be, because the code does speak to, you know, excessive similarity and dissimilarity, so whether they could potentially be all 3 looking exactly the same.
They could, I mean, if.
And that's something that the board may want to consider.
Somebody buys a lot and wants, you know, the tan house, and the next guy comes in and wants the tan house.
But I'm saying under your architectural review standards, if that's something you would want to allow, or if you want to specify that there needs to be a variety.
So while we're talking about that, Pat or Lou, do you have any comment or concern about the possibility of all three houses being the identical color, or 2 out of 3 being an identical color?
I don't, during have now, I'd say that's pretty common.
I think in this case too, where one of the homes is set back considerably further from the road, that's even going to be less evident. So yes, technically the houses on 1 and 2 could wind up being identical colors. That's not so abnormal or disruptive, in my opinion. So I'm comfortable with the new homeowners having an option of 3 colors that we've approved the colors, and if all 3 of them like the same color.
Correct, and there's other aspects of the house that can change. There's the different facades at the bottom, the color, and then the trim. So it may be the same primary color, but different accents can change as well with the options.
Thank you.
That was all I had. I think it'd be appropriate if you wanted to authorize the drafting of a resolution for October.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize Ashley to draft a resolution to be considered at our, do we need to determine whether that's
Specify which.
at one of our October, either our workshop or our meeting? May I have a second? Thank you, Lou. Noreen, if you would.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Oh, right, that's you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move along to Golden Delight Bakery.
Good evening again. For the record, John with Lincoln Tully for the applicant. Back before you, again with some additional information. Last we were here, we were discussing the prior site plan approval associated with the property, the type of uses that we currently have on the property, and we were discussing how to process the application moving forward. So any of the comments that were outstanding, we've tried to address. I believe we have. We noted the max height of the building was one of Sean's concerns. It is under the 30 feet and is in line with what the original architecture of the building was permitted for through the building department. We went over at the last meeting the building footprint, essentially matching the original site plan approval. From what we could tell, it was generally the same square footage. And so we have confirmed those items, and I've addressed Sean's comments from July. So I think we're actually trying to, chart the course here. I think we were talking whether it was subject to seeker or not, and how the board wanted to process the site plan as either an amendment or a new approval. And then we did add some plan cleanups, and we did include a landscaping plan.
Well, actually, on this application,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. Actually, based on John's comments, Ashley, could we start with you? Because I'd like to get some thoughts on seeker for this particular project and about our options in relation to doing this as an amendment or as a new approval.
Sure. So the first, with respect to seeker, I was just speaking, did you say 2,000? Speaking with Sean about that, and it appears there's maybe 2,000 or so square feet that may be not, that may be in addition to what the original approval was for. So in that case, you would treat it as, assuming that doesn't have an approval, an expansion of an existing commercial facility by 2,000 square feet, which would be a type 2 action under seeker. So it wouldn't require any environmental approval. As far as whether it's a site plan amendment or site plan approval, I don't know that there's an actual site plan, approved site plan for the property. I think it was referenced in the CO, but I don't know that we actually have a true site plan. I think either way, it doesn't really matter how you qualify it. It's still going to be a new site plan for the project, so there's really no difference.
Not going to change our process one way or the other.
Don't believe so.
Okay. Any other comments that you have for us at this
I
point?
guess I'd ask that 2,000 square foot difference be noted somehow on the plan, show that that's something that you're seeking the approval for. Just a few other comments, if you could delineate the setback boundaries on the plan.
Yeah, sure.
The plan does indicate that a fence on adjacent property is going to be removed as part of the application, so you'll need an owner's endorsement from that property owner, SBL 2129. Project narrative that was submitted, it mentioned that there was going to be new lighting, so if you could show the proposed lighting and provide spec sheets. And then I believe it was asked that the narrative explain whether there are going to be any delivery trucks or customers coming and going to any of the businesses.
Okay. None of these businesses are retail, so I'll add that.
The retail is permitted in that zone?
I believe it is, but these are like wholesale or, plumber business or something to that.
They are currently, but that could
Correct.
change
Correct, but if
over
there was
time.
a change of use, it'd be back here.
Right. Okay.
And there was also a question of whether it required referral to the county, and since it is now this 2,000 square feet that hadn't been approved previously, it wouldn't fall under the exemption with the county, so it does need to be referred.
On?
Sure. So just to clean up items on the bulk table, the building height, as John noted, was confirmed in the response letter. However, on the bulk table, it still says less than, I think, 50. So just ask that that height be noted in the bulk table to memorialize the height. And then the net lot area was calculated. However, I think when they put it in the bulk table, it was the deduction. What's that? Yeah, it was a deduction rather than the actual what the net lot area was. Number 4 was with regards to the septic tank. There's a proposed parking area over top of it, so just making sure that that septic tank can handle the load of a car.
If I could, just a quick note. We made application to the county for the new sewer service, and they would like the tank abandoned. So that'll become like a grinder station in lieu of an effluent.
So you're going to remove the tank and
Correct.
add a new pump station chamber.
Correct. So the pump station will become a grinder pump station instead of effluent. We were hoping
Right.
to use the tank, collect the
So we're
solids.
going to do effluent. Okay, got it.
Correct.
Okay. So then, next is making sure that there is enough parking spaces between where the handicap stalls are proposed and the ones behind it. Next was the applicant's looking to relocate the driveway to be entirely on the lot. So just questioning what's going to happen with the existing asphalt on the adjoining, I guess it's part of the right-of-way there for the town right-of-way. The next is the sewer is going to be tied into Old Country Road's existing sewer service. So number 1, they're going to need an easement from the lot at the end of Old Country Road. That'll have to be reviewed by Ashley. The calculations for and the design of the pump station should be included in the detail on the plans. And the force main within Old Country Road will need a highway road opening permit from the town's highway superintendent. Next is just making sure that the grades from the handicap parking stall will meet the ADA requirements. Next, I did refer the plans, now that landscaping's been added to Karen. I've not received anything from her yet. And then lastly, there's details for a stop sign and a stop bar, but it's not clear where those are proposed on the plan, so just asking that those be added.
If you could also show any signage for the businesses?
Okay, so I guess just to clarify, we're going to call this a new site plan, just so we pick one term or the other rather than an amendment. Sounds like we can type this action for seeker. So I'd like to make a motion that we type this as a type 2 application. May I have a second?
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we can
Aye.
move forward from that perspective. It does seem like there's a few more things that need to be
Yep, we have some loose ends.
updated on this.
Whether or not you want to hold a public hearing, if you feel ready to make that decision, it's discretionary for the site plan, so.
All right, so before we make that decision, Pat, do you have any comments or questions for John regarding where we're at now?
So I thought early on, we had some sort of drawing of the trees and plants and all that sort of thing that were going to be put in this. And I'm not sure whether that was very early on or another project.
The landscaping plan?
Yeah, we're talking about coming down Larkin Road. And, looks like a big mess to me. I think we made that point.
Yes.
Originally. So what was and I thought you had something to mitigate that, but I can't recall what it is.
Yeah, so all of that, everything that was in the front is going to be removed as part of the application. So all the sheds and the equipment, everything that's being stored like right up against the fence line, as part of this, that all gets removed and taken out of there. And then,
Have a drawing of that, or depiction of that?
yes. So on sheet 1, it's noting that all of that gets removed. And then on sheet 3, we did landscaping. So in the front there, in the structure to be relocated from front yard, the existing shed to be removed, so, and all that material will be taken out of there.
Or if I have that.
August 28th. August 28th. Sorry, George.
Where the sheds are going to be removed up front, the fencing will remain as is?
Yes, I didn't change the fencing on this one. Yes. So where you see the,
Notes here,
yeah,
say it's going to be relocated.
What will we see? It's going to be different. As it be gone?
yeah, all that'll be gone, and then whatever it looks like today, existing vegetation and the fence line will remain, and then you won't see any of the other structures or the piles of materials that they had there. But if you like, I can expand the landscaping a little bit and can buffer that up.
Well, in my opinion, I think that would be a great idea.
That's all right. I'm just struggling a little bit because I still need the area for,
This is the landscaping plan.
circulation.
Got 5 trees proposed here, and some additional trees are coming around the corner on Larkin. And these sheds will be removed, yeah.
They'll be removed, and I can probably maybe put a little bit through there, but not much more because I need it for turnaround area for circulation.
You don't really have room between the fence line and Larkin.
Correct,
That's,
and the actual, yeah, right-of-way line, correct.
On this area here,
Yes.
there's no proposed parking in there, as I recall. Can this whole area be removed and additional landscaping be provided?
No, because they use that entrance. Yes. Yeah, it should be on sheet 1. Go back to sheet 1. Should say gate there. Yeah, so normally what happens is the trucks will come in that entrance and swing around, and then they go to the docks, and then they go out that entrance.
Well, you're,
Okay. No, noted. We'll get something in there. Maybe even if it's to redo the fence on that section. 'Cause
that was going to be my suggestion. If the applicant would consider redoing, the fencing itself is just,
yeah, it's old.
it's old, it's unattractive. You know, I don't know if a stockade-type fence might be appropriate as screening, but even a new chain link fence would look
Correct.
better
And
than
we
what
might be
we
able
got.
to put some shrubbery, some shrubbery there just to block you, because it does go up from Larkin there.
Yes,
So
Yep.
if we, maybe not, towering trees, but maybe a nice row of shrubs, then your line of sight will hit those. So we'll look at that.
thank you.
You just also,
And also, that reminded me too, in terms of architectural review, so since you have this 2,000 square feet or so that hadn't been approved, that would trigger architectural review, so if you could provide details about that. I don't know if you know which portion is,
It's gonna be the bump outs. Yeah, so that bump out and that bump out. Otherwise, the building was just straight.
all I have.
Lou?
No comment?
I don't have any other comments or questions. Ashley, are we at the point where we have plans sufficient that we can refer this to the county at this point, or we still need some of these other issues resolved first? That's something we need to a motion? Fine, then, Maureen, if you can get this for county for their review, so we can get their feedback. And can I just get the board's thoughts around, since a public comment session is optional in this case, do either of you feel that's warranted or not? Lou?
No, I don't think it's necessary. That's my personal opinion.
Pat?
Public hearing?
Yeah.
I think it would be. I don't feel strong.
Only because of its location on Larkin Drive, do I think it's probably worth at least giving the public an opportunity to comment prior to completing this application. Where would we need to get to before we can consider scheduling that?
schedule it now. We'll be submitting plans with the updated landscaping, but you could do it now. If anything comes up, you could always hold it open.
I mean, I think it would be good if we're going to do this, that we schedule it for October 15th. So I'm going to make a motion that we schedule a public comment session, a hearing for October 15th for the Golden Delight site plan
6:30 p.m.
at 6:30 p.m. or as soon as possible thereafter.
Second?
Thank you.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Lou Ruggiero.
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Okay, our next application is Monroe Commons. You'll just introduce yourselves for the record. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Daniel Richmond. I'm with the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz, and with me this evening is Mark Seamers from Peter, Zach, and Thaw, the planners, the project's engineering and planning consultant. As you may recall, your board issued a secret findings for this project after. Is it not on?
I just think you
It's
were
on.
leaning too far away from it.
As you may recall, last month, your board issued secret findings after a comprehensive review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And last night, the town board adopted the HI district amendments, which the project required for the project, and it enables the town board, the planning board to act on it. We're now here this evening to finalize any questions you may have. We understand that your board did not want to act this evening, and we understand your position because the local law has technically not been filed with the Secretary of State in Albany, but we expect that to be done shortly. We're hoping to resolve any technical outstanding issues. I think everything's basically squared away at this point, and we're hoping your board can set a special meeting for October to act on this application.
had you received a copy of our memo from AKRF that was issued out today? Its recommendations on seeker mitigation commitments in the site plan set?
I did see that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a chance to review it in detail, but my understanding is it just recapitulates the secret findings, the mitigation measures required by the secret findings. I don't think it's necessary to have that on a separate site plan. I think they're already enforceable as in the secret findings, but it's as long as, again, there's the same measures that have been set forward in the secret findings, it's not an issue.
I think it's in relation to getting those documented in the way that we need them documented in the site plan.
In my opinion and experience, the building inspector pulls this approved site plan for enforcement action. They don't pull the finding statement to find the mitigations that were approved. Therefore, it's easier for the building inspector to enforce actions if it's on the site plan.
That's fine.
Ash, you were
I
there?
think there
Yeah.
was I know one item which I saw the town's hydrogeologist had responded to regarding the well testing, the well monitoring. So I know they're working out those details with Frank Getchell.
Yes, we just did get that email this afternoon. We had proposed 3 piezometers. He proposed a fourth. We have no objection to that. He asked for, it seems like construction details of piezometers, which is above my pay grade, but I think we can, work that out between the professionals in the next couple of days.
I want to text Ken just to let him know that we're on there, but I don't know if he's, since it's been a while, if he's
He can hear us.
paying attention or not. Put him to sleep.
Well, actually, as far as the final details,
Okay. Oh, there he is.
good evening, Ken. Can't hear you, Ken.
I think it's telling you to turn up the volume.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Ashley, in relation to the outstanding fine-tuning of the process between Frank Ketchel and the applicant, that's something that we can
I think
work as a
that'll
condition?
be, I think, yeah, that'll be probably worked out before, even before then, but
Okay. Ashley, do you have any course at this point, then?
Richard, I know one of these, Sean's comment memo has mentioned the updated architecturals give more detail about the rooftop area, and just want to clarify that it won't be an event space, just wanted to really understand how that'll be used, and that there's no additional lighting or any additional noise or visibility issues from that.
I believe, I don't know if the concern is noise or what have you, but we would abide by whatever the town's noise code says. That can be a condition of your board's approval as well.
If you could just remind us what there's three separate areas for people on the rooftop, and if you could just remind us what those areas are intended to be used for.
I don't know what they're intended to be used for.
First one is for the office. So one is a private office, that's going to be more the executive there, and the other one is for the other office. Oh, so two are for offices, which is going to be used only by day. So the hotel, there's no plan for any occasions on top, and that's what Dan just said, that we're good with having a note there that it should be by the town's occasion. There's no plans for anything. It's more made as more for relaxing or whatever. There's no.
It's a recreational
Yeah,
area.
it's a recreation, but it should be still a note there on the plan that it's committed to the town's code, whatever the code should be for.
Will the hours for use be limited at all, or
Excuse me, I didn't
will the hours of use for those spaces be limited?
to the use. For example, the hotel will only be used in the hotel.
If guests of the hotel wanted to, like often when there's a pool in the hotel pool is available from a certain time in the morning until a certain time at night. Will that be similar for these recreation areas, or there'll be 24-hour access?
It probably will be 24 hours, but it will be committed to, there's no parties and that, it's not designed for that, there's no food on top, it's mostly just sleeping. So there's plans only for having it as a recreation area, and I don't think there's going to be any, but as I said, I mean, the comments, so the notes on there would probably cover that, should be committed to the town's regulations.
Do we have an idea of what the occupancy capacity of each of those spaces might be?
The hotel rooms, I think they're now, I think they're 70 or 74, I don't remember exactly, so that's the occupancy. And the offices, I mean, in the architecture plan, there's the offices that there is. But
I mean, of the three rooftop seating areas, do we know what the approximate capacity of those are, or the size that they are?
I don't have it here, I could have it for the next meeting, but it's in the plans, you can see actually there's plans of furniture, so there isn't a lot of seating there. The capacity is limited on the two of them especially. I mean, the one that is on the far corner to the front of the building, that's more for an executive, which is very little being used only by one office. The back one is just meant for people that want to relax on the office, to go up, have a meeting or whatever. So it's not even proportionally to the office size. Obviously, it's not meant for everybody to go up. it's meant for some people to go up. And then the hotel, obviously, at the next meeting, we may have just a plan of it, but I think it's in the architecture plans that is there, it should be there. If we need it to be square footage, I'll make sure to add it to the next meeting.
Much like on the far side of where the loading area is, where the trucks come in, there's that pocket park that you have at the far end, kind of tucked behind the wetlands. It's for occasional recreational outdoor
Exactly, it's the same.
use. Okay. Thank you.
Is there any additional lighting in that area that's not shown on the lighting plan?
Well, the lighting plan is for general lighting, so every roof has some lights in order to walk there. I'm sure there's going to be some small lights like ballots lights and that kind of lights in there. So it's not designed to be a very bright area, but it's probably the idea of it is to be more of a calm ballot type of lighting that's giving localized lighting in there. That's probably so. The lighting plan is not designed to show specific lights within the building. If needed, we could add to the top a few lights in order to show what it's going to be in the end.
Yeah, I think to address that, any lighting that would be for those areas.
Yeah, I could do that.
And any glare that might be observed from the adjoiners or from the road.
Again?
There,
From outside, that's what I'm saying.
From
It's
out-
more of a
right.
ballot locally light.
Right.
So I'll make sure that
but if it shines outwards, it could potentially be seen.
there is a
Parapet?
exactly.
Okay,
So it wouldn't go out.
okay.
While we're talking about lighting, if we can, so I know you've made some further changes to the lighting plan, bring down some of the foot candles where there was some real intensity, and have that sort of more balanced out. The one thing, I took a quick look at it only, but when I did, the one thing that it seemed to me is, particularly around the main entrance on the front of the building and around by where the hotel entrance are, it seems like it's going to be quite dim. And I'm not sure, is it just not taking into consideration the wall lighting in those areas, the lighting under the underhangs?
So the wall lighting wouldn't add a lot because that's ambient light.
It's really accent lighting.
Yeah, it's going to give some, but very minor. Yes, the canopy lights will light up that area to a certain point, which will meet the same numbers. But we don't have that in the final thing, but that's basically the spots that's right under there. Yes, again, as you know, Bonnie's note was that, and I specifically stressed that by dropping the hot spots, we will get a darker site, and that's why Ken is going to explain why we need the 4,000, at least to give that comfortable feeling. But in general, we have dropped the candle lights from brighter to a little more darker, and by doing that, we didn't do only that, we also added lights in order to make sure that there's no hot spots above 7 to 8, as we agreed.
Lights that were added won't be an interference in the landscaping plan, it seems like.
No, actually, there's no leakage. It's the same, you can look around the perimeter of the property, it's actually the same as it was, actually less. So it was basically, if you look at it, you'll see that it's tilted to the other side. We didn't do it front to back. So the numbers are the same all the way surrounding the building. I don't think it's anything exceeding 0.3, if anything 0.4, but it's the same as it was. I think most of them are 0.1 or 0. And we just basically added a few lights in order to make sure that we dropped, and some areas dropped to lower lighting in order not to get those hot spots.
That's what it looked like to me in looking at it, was that it's more balanced. Some areas were brought up so that the other areas
That's
could
what
be
I did,
brought
yes.
down. It'll be a more even
Equal
lighting
light.
throughout the space. I think before that plan is finalized, I'd just like to get a feel for what the lighting is going to be, particularly at those two entrances, but at any of the entrances.
do that.
Just in and around the building, so that we're ensuring the same thing, that when people are coming in and
Mostly
out, they're
those two
safe.
areas. If the hotel-
Because on the second floor entrance, on the little plaza, you can see that the lighting is going to be adequate for those uses. I just want to see that around the main retail entrance and the hotel entrance. I would assume we'd want to see that where the medical offices are open, although they're probably more daytime use. But if you wind up having a urgent care, that could go into the evening. So
Yeah, but you have only the 3 canopies. So at the area of the medical, you have a little canopy, which I'll add the lights there.
Okay.
And then you have the hotel and the main entrance. The other places should be what it is on the plan. So I'll add those places under the canopy. I only used regular general lighting from the parking, but if you want to see the actual lights, we could turn that on.
I think that would be beneficial. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
The lighting plan, version 9, the last one,
One was just submitted this afternoon, I believe,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's 13.
version 13.
Yes.
Ashley, other comments?
Just that I know the applicant was requesting a special meeting to discuss this application, and I think, because we'd have to ask if George and Noreen are available. I had spoke with Sean and Bonnie, and it looked like October 1st at 5 PM would work.
And that'll give us sufficient time for the law to be properly recorded so we could take action that evening?
It should. I think that I know it was being sent right away, and I think it should.
Okay, so then two things before we get to making a decision on that. Sean, do you have any further comments or things that you need to bring up?
I provided a memo this evening. I don't think there's any showstoppers there. I did have a number of comments on the lighting plan that did not consider the plan that was submitted this afternoon. The main things were the SWIP, we take no exception to. They've addressed all our previous comments. We're waiting on comments from the Joint Fire District and the town's fire inspector. A stormwater maintenance agreement should be executed between the applicant and the town. I can provide a copy of that, a draft of that.
Because I see in your memo,
Ann?
which I just saw, that
Ann?
you're saying that this stormwater
All right,
maintenance
thank you.
agreement should be executed prior to final approval. Do you mean before October 1st, or do you mean before?
Before signing of the plans. And then I had a number of comments on the architectural plans, really just making sure that all the lights that are shown on the building match what's on the lighting plan, and vice versa, as well as identifying all of the materials for all of the finishes on the plans and their colors. And then lastly, I had just a general statement on the outstanding agencies. I know we've talked about some of them perhaps not needing to be required to obtain those permits prior to signature of the site plan. However, I just reiterated all of the ones that I'm aware of, so. I think there is one item that warrants discussion this evening, and that's the lighting color temperature on the exterior lights. The board typically likes to see color temperature at 3,000 Kelvin, preferably 2,700 if that can be provided by the applicant. The applicant is proposing 4,000 Kelvin, and just for the board's reference on color temperature, a 4,000 Kelvin bulb would be more like the hi-hats that are here, and going towards 2,700 would be the color of the hanging lights. So a little bit more amber the lower you go in the Kelvin temperature.
So that plays to a couple of things. One of the things, again, just for the board, that Bonnie always iterates is that for dark sky standards, 2,700 is a preferable color. The higher in temperature you get, these are temperature ratings on the lights, and the higher in temperature you get, the whiter the light gets. So it's more how the light appears rather than a measure of brightness. You can have different color lights, all be the same brightness, but whether it's a cooler look or a hotter look, a warmer look. and it shifts from a whiter light to a yellower light. So something the applicant had expressed to us was that they felt that the higher temperature light was more important from a safety standpoint as people are walking after dark, that a whiter light provides a better source of safety for pedestrians who are either walking back to their car or walking the surrounding areas. We have to balance that out again against what does the property look like, not only from on the property, but from outside the property. As Mr. Gross expressed when he was, well, that's great. There's your various gradients. So you can actually see all the way on the right, the light actually becomes a blue-ish color because it's so warm. But 4,000 is 4 from the left. One of the questions that I was thinking about in relation to this, does lighting come in a 3,500 or you have to go from 3,000 to 4,000?
Certain fixtures, it does come at 3,500, yes.
Does it necessarily require one level? In other words, can you have lights that are closer to the sidewalk, lower level, that might be brighter, but don't ruin the aesthetics of what we're trying to achieve?
Mr. Gross, if I remember correctly, the accent lighting on the building is not proposed to be 4,000, it's a cooler color. Sorry, well, warmer in appearance, but it's a lower temperature.
Exactly, and I'll let Ken, the traffic consultant, explain it better. But yeah, the idea of it is to have the fitting into the area, which the building itself would be, we call it ambient lighting, which would be just giving a little, and that's where it's more important to be warmer, which 3,000. 27 goes already a little towards the darker side, so 3,000 is a comfortable color. 4,000 is actually not used a lot in parkings, but when it comes to more areas that are in residential areas, you try to go in between, which Ken will explain. In regards to the 3,500, that's why you're not seeing it on the chart. 3,500 is more of a new LED. They came up with the 3,500, and the incandescent light didn't have that really. And it's not a real color, which is, and it's not really, I mean, if you look at it, you go in places. In lobbies, you see it, they use it, designers, because it gives some kind of a mix. But when you're outside, it's not really. But I think I'll let Ken just explain what the difference is and why he did a study for it, so he's going to.
That would be great. Ken, can we get some of your thoughts and feedback on that, please?
And one of our engineers go through and look at these various kind of scales. And obviously, I think everyone knows the lower end here, the warmer light, softer, more residential, more kind of comforting, relaxing. And, you know, generally the 4,000 to 5,000, maybe 6, you know, gets a little bit, is more in the commercial range. I would say 4,000 is kind of commercial, but more complementary to residential. And the 5,000 to 6,000 is going to be more like daylight, you know, maybe perhaps more like a car dealership where, you know, if you're shopping for a car, you know, the color that you see at night is also the color that you're going to see during the day, and it's, there's no switcheroo. I bought a red car, but when it came out, you know, I looked at it during the day, it looks pink, you know. Then when you go up higher scale, you know, more industrial manufacturing, you know, stuff where you need just more clarity through there. And I don't know that I've ever seen a 10,000, you know, something that blue. But generally we thought when you're down at the 4,000, you're at the warmer side of the commercial kind of range. And I can't tell you what VMG has, I've driven through there at night but never paid attention to it. And they haven't constructed the east end of BMG up against Monroe Commons, but if they are using some of the warmer tones, then this is kind of like that transition of, the commercial area here in the middle, 4,000 to 6,000, towards the residential, the 2,000 to 3,000. And even their residential, I think, is a little bit unique in that it's not individual single-family homes. They are multi-unit buildings, so it's residential, but it's also a bigger scale, so it's not just your personal light bulb over your porch. It's building lighting that's illuminating the parking lot, the streets and the building itself, the entryways, etc. So, we were suggesting in this 4,000 range, but obviously there's a number of different, perspectives coming to the conversation here.
And your expertise is traffic, yes?
Correct, yep.
So, are there studies, is there information that shows that there's a safer light temperature versus, for pedestrians walking through parking lots or along walkways or long streets, or is it really not come down to that in perspective of the movement of traffic?
I think it's more towards this, daylight condition. But, I don't believe there's a study to say that varies, let's say, safety relative to crime, et cetera, like, 1,000 versus 9,000, 10,000. Here's the scale, expect, this much crime at this level. I don't think it goes to that extent. But the closer you are, I think, to daylight, the more consistent, the area is, whether you're actually in daylight or whether you're using, some lighting. The main difference being that a fixture, let's say if you're on a road, you're not going to have street lights every 50 feet to perfectly illuminate evenly the roadway, as if you were at a racetrack, a NASCAR track. They want to have consistent lighting all the way across, or a sports stadium would have consistent lighting, across the stadium. But on a road, you're going to have really more, hot spots. And when you're talking about relative to the parking lot, the pedestrian access from the building out to those areas, the lighting plan obviously is going to give you those more bright, less bright areas, following along with the town standards not to have spillage, across the property line. But I think it depends, it's a little bit like, the mood that you're trying to set, relative to that. And that, 4,000 to 5,000 is probably a comfortable, commercial area, and, going cooler than that, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, is getting more into, again, that industrial area, and lower than that, more kind of the residential feel.
Thank you. Sean, can I get your thoughts on that as well?
So, in a lot of boards I represent, they are trying to stay towards the lower end of the spectrum, including within commercial projects. However, I do have another board that does allow up to 4,000 Kelvin. So, I know on one gas station project, their engineers pushed very hard from a safety perspective to allow for a higher Kelvin specifically under the canopy where the transactions with the credit cards were taking place. And their whole, I don't want to say pitch as like a sales pitch, however, their recommendation was that they wanted to stay at that little bit higher Kelvin for safety reasons, and therefore I don't see a reason why the board shouldn't allow the 4,000 Kelvin.
So Bonnie and I have different perspectives on this, and I don't know that I can represent Bonnie's fully, but definitely feels that the warmer color lends itself better not only to the type of environment we want to create in the town, but again, getting to these dark sky standards. Now, when I think about this particular project, I think about where it's located and what's around it. It's more or less in a bowl. There's one or two sets of screening as you're driving by on 17. There's a lot of trees along the highway, and then depending on whether you're in front of the wetland area, in the wetland area, there's still going to be quite a bit of screening there of the lights coming off the property. Where you get around the entrance and right in front of the, if you were facing it, the left side of the property, it's more open there. But even in the parking lot, there's quite a number of trees proposed to screen surrounding areas. And I know that one way or the other, no matter what color we decide on, the fixtures themselves are designed to help keep the lighting focus down and prevent it from leaking out of the site. And I started thinking about where the sight lines are into the project, particularly at night. If you're looking down as you're coming over Route 6, down and you look down and see the commons, obviously that's very well lit up at night and it's very clear the schools are. Compared to those things, this is a much smaller project, and again, it's sort of set down into this natural bowl where there's a hill along the one side, there's a hill coming up and the units from VMG on the other, and we know from walking the property that there's a fairly sizable hill behind where the building's going to be. So for me, that all plays into it. I personally prefer 4,000. I spent a fair amount of time walking out of a retail building late at night into a very empty parking lot, and the warmer light, the higher temperature light, I believe we have 4,000 in our parking lot. It just gives me a better sense of feeling of security. We want people to, this is a perception thing. It's really what it comes down to. This is a perception thing, and how do we want people to feel when they're exiting and entering this property and this project after dark? What are your thoughts, Pat?
Very simply, safety trumps aesthetics. So I think there should be latitude for them to provide a safe environment. That's more important than aesthetics.
Lou?
Oh, I agree with Pat. Safety does trump, aesthetics. And if it's in a bowl, as you're saying, and it's not visible to the surrounding community, and no one's going to be annoyed by it, right?
It's not that there's no visibility. There certainly is. And when you're driving down Ninninger at night, you're going to see that property like you see many others. But it's also, let's keep in mind, its location in the town and what the proximity is. On the one side of the highway is the VMG development, where there's quite a bit of lighting. Then on the other side, you have our major retail center with BJ's, Home Depot, Target, again, and Walmart, quite a bit of lighting. So part of the question is it appropriate in this location, in my opinion?
I think absolutely appropriate. I mean, visit it yourself coming out of a retail establishment like BJ's, being in a parking lot with 4,000 Kelvin, you feel safe. Obviously, I would want the people to feel safe in this location.
What struck me is what Ken said about the 4,000, the 5,000, giving more of a daylight type feel to the lighting. And I feel more comfortable that way, personally. But I suspect from a perception standpoint, others would too. Ashley, is this something we need to make a decision on this evening to move forward, or?
So I think any decision, you don't have to vote on a decision this evening. If you want, it could be incorporated into your ultimate resolution. There could be conditions saying that the lights shall be, or not exceed, X temperature.
I think if we can hold off that decision until we make the resolution, I think we'll have a little bit more of attendance from the board, just so we can get a fuller feel of everyone's opinion on that. But I think you have a sense of at least where some of the board is at on this right now. And that'll give us a little more time to consider that. So I would like to make a motion that we schedule a special meeting for reviewing a resolution and voting on a resolution.
So I would just schedule the special meeting because I think you might have another matter, so you don't want to limit it to just this project.
I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a special meeting starting at, it'll be 5 o'clock on October 1st, and probably running till about 6 here in Town Hall on October 1st to consider Monroe Commons and any other matters that the board deems appropriate that evening.
Second.
Noreen, please. Aye.
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 All right, thank you. We look forward to speaking with you shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Night. All right. Next up for our consideration is the amendment to the local tree law, preservation law. Well, I know that Bonnie had provided some comments for you to look over, Ashley. What do we need to do? What's our part of the process in the law amendment that the town board is considering that we need to take care of this evening?
So Bonnie had went over some comments at the last meeting with the board and sent me some comments, so I've been working on putting together a report for this board to consider to make recommendations to the town board. I'm still working out a couple questions I had on what she had submitted, so I don't have that report for you this evening, but if there's anything additional, additional comments that the board wants to raise, that way I could incorporate those into the report as well, and then I think it'd be appropriate to consider it at your meeting on October 1st, now that you're going to have that special meeting, because that'll be before the town board meeting in October.
Thank you. Pat, have you had a chance to take a look over the proposed local law? Do you have thoughts on how that works? You've been working with the existing law for a number of years now, and how that functions for us, or any concerns that you have that you'd like to bring up?
I did have a chance to take a look at it, and several times. Once it was helped me with insomnia, but I was able to get through it, and I don't, I think we had quite a bit of a discussion last time at the last meeting when Bonnie was here, and I don't have anything to add to what we've already talked about at this point. So,
Thank you. Lou, anything that you'd like to add at this?
I feel the same way. I don't have anything to really to add at this point.
While I was not at that meeting, I did have an opportunity to review the video of that, so I know what the board has discussed already. And I think as long as the town board is looking at a balanced approach for tree preservation, but that will still make sense overall in achieving our other objectives, I think that makes sense. The one thing that I haven't heard discussed yet, but I'd like to just put on the table is, ever since we've been talking about the amendment to tree preservation, I personally feel that one of the biggest things we could consider in order to preserve trees in this town, I guess since going back to my early days on the planning board, one of the things that has constantly been a conversation is about impervious surface. And the amount of parking that is required by our code currently may be excessive, and I think it warrants relooking at. Every time we don't have to require a certain amount of parking, the trees that are in that space are automatically preserved, or it gives us additional land to preserve more trees or add more trees. So I'd like to see, once the board is done finishing the tree preservation law, I'd like them to really take a look at that. I think it's the single biggest thing we could do to mitigate impervious surface, preserve trees, preserve the appearance of the town that we're looking for. I think there's a lot of benefits to that, and I hope that's something that the town board would consider as a next project.
I think that's a good suggestion. I think not only looking at required parking, but kind of conversely, how much the board can waive or require that it be reserved, that the area be reserved for parking should the need arise. Maybe that's an alternative approach.
It's one of the things that I was thinking about. If the planning board had more latitude to reduce parking where appropriate, we would really be able to work with applicants on determining or working to determine what's necessary for this business, what's appropriate for this location, rather than a pro forma approach to prescripting out for so much square footage, for so many employees, for
I think Monroe Commons is a perfect example of that. Their parking study showed they needed 50% less parking than what they actually had to provide.
And I think of this project, I think of Home Depot, who is currently before us to reduce 34 parking spaces.
Right.
And from when it was originally approved, our current code requires 300 more parking spaces than are provided for now. And because of that, and merely that fact of the change in code, we don't have the latitude to grant them the ability to reduce 34 spaces if we so choose to, when they've demonstrated to us over the course of studying 20 years of parking in that lot that they're using less than 40% at a maximum. To me, that's trees that didn't have to die. And again, I walk out into a parking lot all hours of the day that is never full. But the spaces are there because we require them. It doesn't, and having that much parking does not promote our ultimate environmental goals. It's just not smart environmentally. It says everyone should drive here in their own car because there'll be plenty of parking for you, and that's our primary concern. But I don't honestly believe that it is our primary concern in the town of Monroe. And I think we have to look to how we can adjust our laws to really be focused on what our real priority is here in creating the environment that we want to live in and that's healthy. So that's my comment for this evening.
I concur.
Thank you. So we can discuss that further at our next meeting. We do want to get something.
Incorporate that into the draft report.
I would appreciate that.
Just one other
Please.
I've just read about, other materials that are coming on board that are, allow more water, park on them and water very early technology. Something that we should
Yeah, I think you're right. We are early on that. There's some maintenance challenges to the existing infrastructure that's available right now, but for sure, it's something to continue to monitor and see appropriate certain uses
Sure, it costs 3 times as much as well, so.
eventually.
All right, so there's no action. Oh, please do. Please step up to the mic. Use the podium. You're a town councilwoman, pick it.
And I think it's on.
It is.
The other thing is, the times have changed because people are used to now going on the internet and buying things online. I think parking definitely was a concern back when everybody drove a car and it was holiday season and everybody hit the stores, and yes, you needed that much parking and you didn't want them backing up into the street or driving around, things like that. You made a very strong point that times are different now and we don't need all that parking, whether they're using dial-a-bus or some other kind of transportation, going on the internet. So I would be very interested in also backing up that proposition that the planning board be allowed to actually look what the applicant is proposing and basing a good idea of what the parking needs are on whatever that proposal is, whether it's a hotel, a single-family home, a strip mall. Larkin Drive is probably one of the best commercial areas we have for the town, and we don't want to make it so onerous with the trees that everything's going to be cut down. So I like your suggestion very much. Thank you.
All right, we also have on our agenda to discuss the Mary Crest project. It's in Blooming Grove, and it's the solar farm that's being proposed. And while it's on our agenda for tonight, I don't know that it's a matter that we should be discussing this evening quite yet. I'd like to see as many members of the board available for that, but what's our timeline as far as we're an involved agency in that or interested?
Interested aid.
Okay. So what are if you just review what our responsibilities are in relation to this project, is there anything we need to do? Is this more of a stay awareness sort of thing? Do we have any sort of advisory capacity or comment capacity back to the lead agency?
Or you don't have any true, approval authority or anything like that, so it really would just be your comments, any comments that you have to offer, any concerns that you have, and I think it was the county planning department that had suggested it be referred to the town planning board, and I think it certainly issue those comments, but I don't think you're ready to right now, but I think you should definitely be reviewing, the project, the materials, and depending on where they go with the seeker process, there'll be a set time when they'll be accepting comments, and we could, discuss that as it arises, or whether there'll be a public hearing. That would be probably the appropriate time to issue them, but I think it makes sense to do so at some point.
We have time to still consider this. We're not in a window where this has been referred to us and we have 30 days or 60 days to comment back on it at this point. It's very early in the process.
Yeah.
That's correct. They've only circulated for lead agency at this time.
Okay. All right, so we're going to postpone that matter to a more appropriate opportunity. As memory serves, we once again don't have enough of a quorum. We have a quorum, but not enough of the members to vote on the June 13th minute. So we'll put those up. Ashley or Sean, did you have anything else that we need to consider this evening?
For me.
Board members, anything you wanted to discuss? I'm just going to say it for Noreen. we're most of the way through September. If you don't have your training hours done, get them done or plan on when to get them done.
I do have a
because-
suggestion.
Please.
It's been bothering me. If we are truly, really want to preserve the trees and preserve Monroe and things of that nature, maybe there should be a moratorium on building for a while, and that would probably save a lot of my thoughts.
There's a lot that goes into that, quite a bit. The town was last under moratorium back in 2017 as part of re-examining its comprehensive plan, which was voted on in December 2017, and we started working with that January. I think certainly if and when the town is ready to re-examine that, that might be appropriate. But I think the town continues to massage laws like the tree preservation code in an effort to balance things out at this point. So, but that's definitely a valid comment, without a doubt. If there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh,
Second.